Now that Loki Season 2 is complete, I thought this would be a fun time to rank every single series that Marvel has produced for by far the worst streaming service ever created, Disney+. Now obviously this is going to be a fun video, because the vast majority of content that Disney has so far produced has been absolutely terrible. Now to give Disney some credit, they have indeed made some decent shows here and there, and even at times some really great shows. So in this video I'll be breaking down all of it, and figuring out which show is the best and which shows should have been given the Batgirl treatment. Some small notes: I will be counting the 2 seasons of Loki as 2 separate shows, since I have 2 completely different opinions of both. So yeah, if you don't like it, I guess just
fuck you, I don't know.
This will also just be the Disney Plus shows, so no Netflix shows or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because I'm not sure if any of those are actually canon to the MCU at this point. But if you really want to know where I would have ranked those, Daredevil would have been number 1 on this list, The Punisher would have been number 2 on this list, Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and The Defenders would have been somewhere near the middle of the top of the middle, Iron Fist closer to the bottom of the middle, and if you think I'm a big enough loser to have sat through 7 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you are absolutely delusional.
Are you out of your fucking mind?
How this is by far the highest rated thing the MCU has ever made on Rotten Tomatoes is just mind-boggling to me. Miss Marvel is trash. I'm sorry, it is just absolute, it's unwatchable. Now before I get into the main details of the show, I do want to say Iman Vellani is amazing. She was born to play this character, and she brings so much life into this, and it's so clear that she is so much more passionate about this character and about this world than pretty much anybody involved at the studio at this point. She clearly cares more than anybody, and you could really see it even in the Marvels. So this show being last and this show being a piece of shit is definitely not her fault. It's just a bad nothing show. The show essentially follows Miss Marvel as she discovers her powers. She's this superhero fan, this big superhero fan, especially of Captain Marvel, and we follow her family and everything going on in this little place in New Jersey. And I will say the show does have a pretty good first episode that actually got me really invested in the whole thing, because we got to see what the MCU universe looks like from the view of a fangirl teenager, and I really enjoyed that. They had this whole Comic-Con thing, and I thought the show was very creative. It had a very interesting visual comic-y flair that I liked, and all of that was done really well, but then I could not tell you what happened in the 5 episodes after. I know I watched all of them, but god damn were they just so boring. Does this show have a villain? I mean, it must have, because I know there's a final fight. What was it, Damage Control were the bad guys? I don't know. All I know is that the show eventually becomes kind of like a fetch quest where she's traveling around the world trying to figure out what her bandit thing or whatever that she wears is, and it just really goes nowhere interesting, and it's such a slog. And I feel like Miss Marvel is a really, really strong character that really would mold herself to a great series or a movie if it was written and treated right. She's such an interesting character. I mean, even the Avengers video game, which is a terrible game, actually told an interesting story with Miss Marvel that I thought would have been, there would have been some inspiration kind of taken for here. But instead, they just kind of do the bare minimum of introducing her character, and it goes absolutely nowhere. The show is so lucky that Iman Vellani is so fascinating and fun to watch, because if it was somebody else and there was no decent performance here, this show would be a pile, just absolutely unwatchable, and I already think it's kind of unwatchable. I don't know, maybe this is one of those things where the show is just clearly not made for me, and it's not my type of thing, but I don't know, I just absolutely could not stand watching this show. I thought it was terrible, and Iman Vellani deserves so much better. Now, the only reason She-Hulk isn't last, because don't get me wrong, it is very deserving of being last, it is a steaming pile of shit, is because there was something done in She-Hulk that I enjoyed and I thought was funny, and I might be the only person on planet Earth that thought it was a good idea. And of course, I'm talking about the finale. I thought the finale was great, because I was absolutely appalled watching this show at just how terrible and stupid and goofy it was. Just absolute cringy nonsense. I mean, you have Lizzo coming in, and you have She-Hulk twerking.
Taste it there, num 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 num, eat it up. Go play okay, 3, 2, 1. You know I'm the hottest, you ain't never gotta heat me up.
You make Mark Ruffalo's Hulk seem like the biggest joke in the world of a character. You bring in Daredevil. What the fuck did you do to Daredevil? Oh my god, you guys fucked him up. I mean, it was just an absolute disaster what they were doing this entire run with the show. It was boring, it was sluggish, it was just so bad. And then you get to the finale, and at least they were honest, and they kind of admitted a couple things. They admitted that the entirety of the MCU is pretty much just being produced by AI, and they've admitted that the whole thing is just a gigantic wash of nonsense at this point. But they also admitted that the entirety of the show that we had just been forced to watch was really, really bad, and I kind of liked the way they did that. They were at least self-aware that what they had created was really, really bad, and they needed to do something so stupid and so fourth wall breaking to undo it in this finale, and because of that, I actually thought the finale was unique. So that's why I have it here at number 9, because I thought at the very least it did that correct. Now I know, I can already see the few people that watch this video might be commenting how stupid I am. Are you fucking crazy? What's wrong with you? Why would you rank this so low? It's the greatest season of television ever. It's better than Succession. It's better than Breaking Bad. Loki season 2 is the GOAT of TV.
This is art, Mr. White.
Yes, Loki season 2 is a masterpiece for one episode. But to get to that one episode, you have to watch 5 episodes of nothingness. 5 episodes of the most boring MCU writing and bullshit that you will see all year or all decade. I mean, the first 5 episodes of the show are a nothing burger. Nothing happens. And I know what you're gonna say, oh, episode 4 was so crazy, it was so... Episode 4's entire emotional pull is dependent on the idea that the audience buys into the stakes of the episode. That the audience buys into the idea that this thing is actually going to explode and destroy time and change the entire landscape of the MCU. That's how that episode actually works. And if that was true, if those stakes were real, then by God is episode 4 a masterpiece. But everybody watching episode 4 understands that there are no stakes in this show. That there aren't. There's nothing's going to happen in this show that is going to destroy the possibility of making other MCU movies. And that's a problem with the MCU as a whole, but specifically in this show. There are no stakes. The stakes don't matter because we know they will be resolved so the MCU can continue making their other 50,000 movies. Therefore, the best way for the MCU to actually do stuff, knowing that that's the formula that they have to go by, is that they have to make the stakes more personal. They have to make it more about the characters losing each other, not the characters impacting and losing the world, since we know they can't do that, or at least convince an audience of that at this point. And I just don't feel like this show did it, because it made clear that there's this massive multiverse and they could just keep redoing every single conflict and controversy that happens between Loki and everything going on. They could just keep redoing it. I thought all of the side characters in this season took a complete back seat from where they were in the first season. I thought the new characters, Victor Timely and Ki Kwan's characters, really were just nothing burgers yet again. Sylvie especially did nothing this season. I thought Tom Hiddleston was great. This is probably my favorite performance of him, you know, besides the first season. I think he's really, really great here, and I think his character has a full arc. And yet again, I think the finale is probably the best episode of television that Marvel's put out. The finale is phenomenal. It is amazing. It gets, you know, it's a little bit over convoluted. It's a little bit stupid in a few different ways, but it does come to a very, very great conclusion for the character and for this series that I'm sure Marvel, they can't help themselves. They're gonna find a way to fuck it up and undo it, because they can't just let it rest. Just let it end. Let this be the ending for Loki. Let us not see this character again and know that this is a really, really satisfying conclusion for him. But we know they're not gonna do that.
I have one word. Don't.
So yes, I have Loki season 2 at number 8, and if you don't like it, well, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Kiss my ass. This show is really overhated. It's not good, but, like, it's not the steaming pile of dog shit that I see most of the internet calling it. Secret Invasion is the big solo Nick Fury show, and it's a show that has a very interesting premise. We have this, you know, small-time story about this group of Skrulls who are essentially invading Earth, you know, taking over the bodies and the personalities of known characters and world leaders, and they're infiltrating governments, and they're plotting to essentially destroy humanity so the Skrulls could take over and have a planet to live on. Nick Fury is one of the few people that is actually aware of this, and he is trying to stop them. It's a very interesting story that maybe should have been done on a larger scale with more Avengers characters, but you know what? I think they did it okay here. One thing I like about the show is it leans as close as possible to an R rating without actually being an R rating that we've gotten so far. This show actually has some really brutal moments that are just dark, and there's some kills that are really, really bordering the line of gruesome, rated R kills. I liked Nick Fury as a character. I thought he was really great. I liked Emily Clark's character. I thought a lot of the stuff they did here was great. They brought in Olivia Colman, who's a master actress, just amazing, and she was way too good for this show, and she does amazing here. So why does this show rank so low? Because it sounds like I'm doing nothing but praising it right now. Well, it's very simple. A lot of the dialogue is horseshit. And what I mean by horseshit is it's not even written like unorganically or bad. It's just that they decided that their themes were not coming across visually or organically in the story. So there are so many times that they had the characters essentially look the camera in the eye and tell the audience what they're supposed to be feeling, what they're supposed to be thinking, what does this story actually mean? And I can't stand that when I'm watching a TV show or a movie. I'd rather it go unsaid and the audience be confused about what the actual subtext is than them look the audience in the eyes and say, hey, this is what our show is actually about. And then of course the finale. The finale is terrible. It's really, really bad. They had a chance to do something really creative and really interesting, and they decided to have a gigantic big CGI fight fest, and it was dumb. So yeah, Secret Invasion number 7, flawed show.
Every day I wake up, then I start to break up, lonely.
Next up is Moon Knight, and this is the show that's really disappointed me. It was one of the shows that I was actually really looking forward to, because I think Moon Knight is such a cool character that has so much potential and could be amazing, and they got Oscar Isaac attached to do it, and he is incredible in everything he does. And then I heard that Ethan Hawke is playing the villain. How could this show go wrong? Well, it could go wrong. It can go wrong for a couple reasons. A, not making it rated R, so they can go full-blown crazy with this character. 2, having extremely boring writing with a directionless plot that really goes nowhere. And number 3, having the worst finale where you decide to take this character and yet again do a gigantic CGI shitfest final fight. But I will say, sprinkled throughout the show are a lot of great stuff. Of course, Oscar Isaac is amazing. His performance here is incredible. A lot of the visual direction earlier in the show is really cool. I like the different scenes and the different ideas of him switching personalities, and we don't see the fight scenes, we just see the aftermath. I think that is really cool and really well done, and I think there's a lot of interesting ideas and creative themes earlier in the show that just kind of go to waste as the show goes on. It becomes more and more like a typical MCU story. I also think Ethan Hawke's villain character is cool. I think he's really, really cool, to be honest. Yet again, I just think the show ends up being really boring, especially later on, and I think it becomes a CGI fest, and I just did not enjoy the second half of this show nearly as much as the first half. Falcon and the Winter Soldier is definitely hated on way too much. It's an okay show. Is it slow and sort of boring at times? Yes, it is. But is it a really good sort of epilogue-y, type show / story after Endgame, following these characters after, Chris Evans, Captain America, had left, and following Bucky and Sam and seeing where this world is now? Yes, I think it is. And I think it's a really satisfying way to get Falcon, get Sam Wilson into the Stars and Stripes and make him into Captain America. And yet again, I think a lot of the stuff here is really slow, and that's the main thing I don't like about the show. I also didn't love the villain, but I think US Agent, bringing in him, I think he's a great character, and I cannot wait to see more of him. They bring back Baron Zemo, who's my favorite villain from the entire series, the entire MCU, to be honest, and I think Daniel Cruel is amazing in this series. He's great. I think the finale, when you actually see Captain America as Sam Wilson, he comes in with that suit, which is awesome, and I think a lot of the final fight stuff there is really cool. I think Bucky has a really nice character arc here. I think the introduction to that weird criminal city world is cool, and I'm kind of weirded out that they haven't revisited that yet in the 3 years since the show's been out. This is another show, though, I just think it's a little on the nose sometimes. My same complaint about Secret Invasion, where they kind of look the audience in the eyes and say, guys, this is what this show is actually about.
You've got to do better, Senator. You've got to step up. Because if you don't, the next Carly will.
Fuck off.
I think it got a little too much, so that's why it kind of falls a little flat, and it's ultimately a little bit forgettable, but I am excited to see what they do with Sam Wilson's Captain America when his film eventually comes out. Hawkeye is the first show on this list that I could say I actually really like. Like, I would give it probably like a 4 out of 5. I think it is an amazing show. It does have its problems, it's not perfect, but the show is very lighthearted, it's a lot of fun, it uses its Christmas time setting perfectly, it introduces Haley Steinfeld, who's amazing, and it brings back Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye and doesn't push him to the side like a lot of these other series does. It actually makes him, it allows him to be the central character while introducing another central character and making it truly about the two of them. And it's a show that I think truly captured the essence of its comic book counterpart, like, perfectly. I think this was exactly what I thought the show was going to end up being when I had read some of the Hawkeye comic books that included Kate Bishop. There are some issues with the show, and it's mainly with Kingpin. I think they finally bring back a Kingpin from the Daredevil series, and I was so excited to see him, and I just feel like they kind of fucked him up. In the essence that in Daredevil, Kingpin is literally this badass dude that cannot be beaten by anybody. And then he loses to Kate Bishop in the first scene, or first couple scenes that he's in.
You can't keep getting away with it!
But ultimately, the inclusion of Florence Pugh's Yelena was great. I thought Echo was actually a pretty cool character, and ultimately, I think the show is pretty good, and maybe I'm in the minority of that, but I enjoyed Hawkeye. Loki Season 1 is definitely a lot better than Season 2. It's just a much more complete show with a better cinematic vision, better writing, better characterization of these characters themselves, and ultimately a more satisfying just package as a whole. Now, I do have some problems with Loki Season 1 as well, I'm not gonna lie. Let me get to the problems first. First off, the Loki-Sylvie love story sucks. It's not good, nobody likes it, it's terrible. There's also a couple episodes here that feel like filler episodes, and when you have a 6-episode season, to have filler episodes feels a little dumb. But the episodes that aren't fillers, specifically the earlier episodes in the introduction to the TVA, this really cool and imaginative angle of the MCU, this new group that are controlling time, the timeline, all that stuff was really, really cool. And Tom Hiddleston's Loki is maybe a top 5 character in the entire MCU, so seeing him get the center stage was so much fun. Mobius, played by Owen Wilson, such a good character. We get a bunch of different characters from the TVA who are all very interesting. I think Sylvie herself is an interesting character outside of the love story. I think a lot of the stuff they did this season was really good. The fight scenes were cool, the music, the music. And of course we get to the finale and our first introduction to Kang in the MCU, and this to me was incredible, and it really made Kang seem like this terrifying big bad that could actually level with Thanos. And of course, that definitely wouldn't be undone in another movie, right? But Kang here is awesome. He Who Remains, I think is what they call him, but this version of Kang is amazing, and he's amazing in Season 2 as well. But this finale, this reveal, was great, and it ultimately made Loki one of the best watches, and it got me so excited for Season 2, because that cliffhanger was incredible. I gotta put What If as number 2. Even though it's not a traditional series, it's definitely one of the best things that Marvel's put out over the last few years. What If is an animated series where every single episode is a what if scenario within the MCU. What if this character was different? What if this world was different? And it tells a different kind of story every single week. Now, some of these stories don't exactly work. I think like the Captain Britain one with Peggy was just not great. But there are some here that really are some of the best stories that have been told in this universe. I mean, the Doctor Strange episode is insane. The Black Panther one, when he becomes the Star-Lord of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and you get like a Thanos redemption arc. That whole episode was crazy. The finale with this like super mega version of Ultron was really, really cool. I think the episode with Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger was really great. I think the zombies episode was interesting. This show just had a lot of ideas, and it allowed for its writers to be super creative and just go absolutely crazy, and I'm really excited for the second season to see where they go with it, but this is great. This is what the MCU needs more of. They need more creativity. They need more exciting stuff like this where creators, filmmakers, visionaries can actually see a cool original story and a cool original vision with deep themes and action and all that stuff actually take shape and take form, because you'll get something like this. What If is great. For me, WandaVision, the first MCU show that they put out, I still think it's the best. Yet again, I want to clarify, this is not a perfect show, but it's the show that I've easily was the most invested in out of all of these while watching it. Watching WandaVision live, I can't even describe to you what that experience is like. The week-to-week theorizing, the week-to-week speculation, watching YouTube videos, trying to figure out what's going on. It was truly an experience I'll never forget. It was amazing, and the early episodes of this show were some of the most creative things I've ever seen, with them actually filming sitcom-type episodes with Wanda, and Vision, of course. And I think a lot of the places this show goes are actually interesting. I think Agatha is a super interesting character, and the twist of her being the villain I thought was pretty cool. I think a lot of the action was really cool. I did not like the Ralph Boner thing, but seeing Evan Peters come in and the reveal of him was one of the greatest things I've ever seen in a TV show. I got very excited about it. Yet again, they kind of ruined it with Ralph Boner, but you know, it was cool. And I think the finale has a really cool final fight, and although it's not as satisfying as I had hoped it would be, seeing her, Wanda, actually turn into the Scarlet Witch in her full power was really, really cool, and it set up the eventual terrible Doctor Strange sequel in a really cool way. But ultimately, this is probably the show that I had the most fun watching, and even though it might not stand up to all these other shows on a rewatch, I don't really care. It was the show that I was the most invested into, therefore I have to rank it number 1. It was the best made show in my opinion. So yeah, that's the video. Leave your rankings down below because I'm sure you all definitely agree with me, right? Make sure to like this video and subscribe for more. Make sure to click on the video you see on screen right now to see more of my content. I will see you guys in the next video.